Hi writers, the supplies you need for today's work is going to be a book that you're reading, your writing journal, and something to write with. The purpose of your work today is to notice how authors use punctuation. We are going to read like a writer. So as you're reading your book today, you're not reading to find out what happens to the characters. You are reading to find out how does the author use punctuation. Punctuation marks are the road signs for our readers. I know that as a writer, when I put in an exclamation point, that is telling my reader to stop, and then their voice is going to go up. So the punctuation marks that I use help readers read with expression. Also, the punctuation marks that I use as a writer make my writing powerful and help my reader understand. The first thing that we're going to do is set up your notebook. I'm going to set the book to the side. We'll get to that in just a little bit. And if you don't have your book with you right now, that's okay. I do want you to have your journal. So if you don't have your journal, pause and go get your journal. So in your journal, we are going to be working. So if we use this tab and open, and so we have our ideas about to write, and so we'll use this page here. I'd like for you to turn your notebook so that it's going horizontally. We're going to be making 3 columns, and this gives us just a little bit more space. So we're going to do a heading, and then we're going to head 3 different columns. So our heading for our work today is reading like a writer. So please write this in your notebook. All right. Our first column, we are going to be keeping track of what we noticed. So our first column is labeled What I Noticed. And then I'd like for you to draw a line. After we notice the punctuation that the author used, we're going to think about what it meant. So our next column is what it meant. And then draw a line. And our last column, examples of work. We are going to be gathering examples of what other authors are doing so that we have a collection of ideas of what I can use as a writer or what you can use as a writer. Okay, I would like for you to put your notebook away, settle in, and watch to see what it is that you're going to be doing in your notebook. So from here on out, as I am writing, you don't need to be writing. So I'm going to have my notebook nearby, and I'm going to get this book. I've already read the true story of the 3 little pigs. I know the true story. I know what happens to the pigs. I know what happens with the wolf. I understand the story. But today I'm not reading to understand the story. Today I'm reading to notice how the author is using punctuation. So I read the book through reading as a writer, and I decided that I wanted to use this page here. I noticed the punctuation on this page. So first I'm going to read the text that I have here in the book, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like to do our work in our notebooks. All right. Maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. So reading this as a writer, I already, just at a quick glance, I noticed the punctuation, that there are punctuation marks on this page. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use what I've noticed, and I'm going to put it in my notebook. So when it's what I noticed, that's going to be a punctuation mark. What is a punctuation mark that you noticed? And if you're not quite sure, maybe you notice a punctuation mark, but you're not sure what it's called, you can Google. You could use the punctuation, like, so for example, this right here, I can put in the word it's, and then in my Google search, and then say, what punctuation mark is this? So if you're not quite sure of the name, it's okay to use Google as you're working. So let's just start with that. That is an apostrophe. So I'm going to I'm going to make the punctuation mark and I'm going to name it. So apostrophe. And actually, I noticed that the author used more than one. So I did notice apostrophes. So we've got an apostrophe here and an apostrophe here. Now I'm going to be thinking about, well, when the author used these apostrophes, what did it mean? Well, it just so happens, I know that an apostrophe could mean a couple of different things, but in this case, both of them mean the same thing. As a reader, it doesn't tell me to slow down and take a breath or pause, but it tells me that the writer, the author, combined two words to make a contraction. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the sentences that has an apostrophe, and I am going to write it word for word. And even what I do as I'm writing, I hold my finger at each word. So I'm at maybe, so capital M, and this is where I'm using the punctuation that I noticed. So now I have an example in my writer's notebook of a time an author used an apostrophe that was combining two words to make a contraction. Okay, as I go along, I notice right here a comma. And so it's, hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. So in my notebook, because I noticed a comma, I'm going to write comma. Now I'm going to put it, so an apostrophe, you notice how I put apostrophe in the word up here? So with comma, I kind of put the comma so it looks a little bit different. Okay, now this, you have this as a resource in your Schoology folder. So if you're not quite sure, if you can't remember what it is that a punctuation mark is telling you to do, you can look in Schoology. You can also use Google as a resource. So what that comma means is for the reader to slow down and take a breath. And it also means that hey, the word hey, is separated to grab attention. So when the author was writing this, hey, and then we're taking a breath. So like if you say hey, you want to give some time for whoever you're maybe yelling at. You're trying to get someone's attention, and so you need the reader to pause and have that attention. So it's about grabbing that attention. And then I'm going to record. I'll show you on the camera once I'm finished, but I really do like to hold my finger at my text, so I'll show you after I'm written. So I'll write capital H-E-Y, comma. So I'm writing the sentence exactly how it is from the book. So I have a collection of work to guide me when I'm writing and experimenting with punctuation. So I took the sentence where that comma told us to slow down, and then also it's getting attention. So I have that example. And then I'm going to notice one more punctuation mark, which is going to be periods. So at the end of maybe it's because of our diet, at the end of this sentence, we've got a period here and we've got a period here. So what is it that means? Well, for a period, that road sign, that's a road sign telling the reader to stop. And as a writer, it is the end of a thought. Okay, so I know that these two sentences have a period, but I'm going to go ahead and choose a different sentence from the page where it says that's just the way we are. So I'm going to use that sentence. That's just So today in my reading, as I was reading like a writer, I noticed that the author used apostrophes. I noticed that the author used a comma, and I noticed that the author used periods. In your work today, you are going to read a book that you've been reading and read like a writer. You can go back, like let's say that you're on chapter 5. If you want to go back to chapter 3 and use sentences from chapter 3, you can absolutely do that. It doesn't have to be that you're reading forward. In your notebook, I expect for you to notice at least 3 different punctuation marks. At least 3. Mine happen to be all on the same page. Yours do not have to be on the same page. Maybe you noticed something on page 38, something different on page 42, and something else on 53. So your mission is to read like a writer, track the punctuation that you notice, what it means, and then copy a sentence using that punctuation mark.